Okay, Trickstars. They were used by Aoi Zaizen when during her usage of the Blue Angel avatar, and one duel when she was using the Blue Girl avatar. The reason I'm a bit nippy and zippy here is because I'm on a bit of a tight schedule, and yeah, I want to get this archetype over with a bit faster, so yeah. But basically, yeah, like I said in the previous episode, this is a very meta-relevant archetype, which focuses on massive swarming and burn damage, well, minuscule burn damage, which combined with their excessive swarming, combines basically transforms into larger sums of burn damage. So yeah, they also have very nice consistency to them since all that. Yeah, let's actually get into it. First up, we have their level 1 Trickstar Nightshade. This is a level 1 fairy with 100 attack and 0 defense. And if this card is sent to the graveyard as a link material for the link summon of a Trickstar monster, you can special summon this card but banish it when it leaves the field. You can only use this effect once per turn. Yeah, decent recovery. They have a link 1 which requires a level 2 or lower Trickstar monster, so this basically translates into an instant link 2 at that point. Or a link 3 if you have some materials to spare for some more higher link monsters, which you most probably do. So yeah, it's a bit of a bummer that this thing gets banished upon leaving the field, but you can recompensate with stuff like Imperial Iron Wall, for example, which means you can actually infinitely use and recycle this thing. So yeah, this is usually a 2 or 3 off staple in Trickstars. Next up, we have their level 2 Trickster Mandrake. If this card is sent from the field from the hand to the graveyard, sorry, you can special summon this card in defense position but banish it when it leaves the field. If this card is sent to the graveyard as a link material for the link summon of a Trickstar monster, you can target one monster in an opponent's link monster points to destroy it. You can only use each effect of Trickstar Mandrake once per turn. This is another card that can benefit from Imperial Iron Wall, but you're most likely gonna be using the hand special summon effect, since there are some cards which can trigger this thing's effect. However, the on-field effect is a bit too specific, since it most likely requires a link monster, another one, in order to work, which isn't too hard to pull off, since most monsters in the extra deck nowadays tend to be link monsters. But again, that link monster needs to specifically point to a monster in order to um, in order for this effect to go off. And yeah, but yeah, it is a decent destruction effect. So yeah, again, 2 of these should be fine. Next up, we have another staple, 3 off staple, that being Trickstar Belle, who you really don't want to draw into, and here's why. If this card is added to your hand, except by drawing it, you can special summon it from the hand. You can only use this effect once per turn, and this card can attack your opponent directly. And when this card inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can target one Trickstar monster in your graveyard added to your hand. So basically, this is a prime target for every single card effect in the archetype that searches out Trickstar cards or Trickstar monsters. So basically, I would love this eons more if the special summon effect wasn't a once per turn effect, but if it wasn't, it will probably be on the limited or the semi-limited list pretty fast, because the amount of plays you can make with this thing is absolutely insane. Not to mention it is a 800 attack direct attacker, which is very nice for a direct attacker, and also it's a 2000 defense wall, which is a huge amount of defense points for a level 2 monster. So yeah, it's a very great card, but yeah, you usually run 3 of these, but you pray to God that you never draw into them, or that you discard them with something, or then add them back to your hand with some with stuff like some of their other support cards, so you can trigger its effect. So yeah. Next up, we have their first level 3, Trickstar Licorice. It has 1600 attack and 1200 defense, and a quick effect that you can reveal this card in your hand and target one Trickstar monster you control except Trickstar Licorice. Special summon this card, and if you do, return that monster to the hand. Each time a card is added to your opponent's hand, inflict 200 damage to them for each. So yeah, it's a great card. What else can I say? Licorice is absolutely ridiculous, as you can actually chain multiples on them on the same monster in order to basically get 2 monsters for free, which is always a plus in my book. there is a certain monster which highly benefits from this, so yeah, you have to wait a turn until you get to use it again, but still, it's a very nice card to consider having in your deck. Always run 3 and never any less, that's what I say. Next up we have the monster which you will be normal summoning most of the time, that being Trickstar Andina. When this card is normal summoned, you can add one Trickstar card from your deck to your hand, and each time your opponent activates a spell or trap, you can inflict 200 damage to them immediately after it resolves. So, yeah, this is an archetypal add one archetypal thing to hand searcher, so yeah. The worst thing about this is that it eats up your normal summon. It specifically needs to be normal summoned in order to pull this search off. If it can be normal or special summon, then this would be a miles better card, since you can actually revive it and then proceed to search more stuff out. It also has, for a level 4, it has a nice 1800 attack, and yeah, it's a very nice card indeed. So yeah. Next up we have the other level 4, that being Trickstar Narcosis. If your opponent takes effect damage except during the damage step, you can special summon this card from your hand, and you can only use this effect of Narcosis once per turn. Each time your opponent activates a monster effect in their hand or graveyard, inflict 200 damage to them immediately after it resolves. Yeah, very nice and archetypal summoning condition. Works with the intended nature of the deck in terms of taking effect damage. You can also trigger it with, well, basically any effect damage, so triggering it with the Dark Room of Nightmare can also be a viable strategy if you choose to go for that build, which heavily accentuates burn damage. But yeah, you will usually perform certain builds, which I'll get into later when we get to the link monsters when applying those burn effects. So yeah, it has the reverse stats of, almost reverse stats of Andina. So yeah, it's a bit of a more defensive card overall. So yeah, run 2 or 3 of these. Next up we have Trickstar Road. It has 1400 attack and 1900 defense, and you can discard one Trickstar card and target one Trickstar Link monster in your graveyard to special summon it. You can only use this effect of Road once per turn, and each time a card is banished from your opponent's graveyard, immediately inflict 200 damage to your opponent for each card banished. So yeah, this is one of the archetypal ways to trigger the effect of Mandrake, and yeah, it basically it requires this thing to be on the field in order to work, which I would actually love it if you could actually activate this effect from the hand as well, since you don't have to waste your normal summon or for this thing. So yeah, it's not the best applicability, but it can be useful in a pinch. So yeah, running 1 or 2 of these doesn't hurt. And next up we have our first tribute monster, that being Trickstar Kurobane. Has 2000 attack and 1000 defense, slightly resembles Juvia for some reason. And if you control no monsters, or all of monsters you control are Trickstar monsters, you can special summon this card from your hand, and during the damage step, when your Trickstar monster battles an opponent's monster, quick effect, you can send this card from your hand to the graveyard. That monster you control gains attack equal to its original attack until the end of this turn. You can only use one Trickstar Kurobane effect per turn, and only once that turn. You're most likely gonna be using the first effect, since it's basically a free level 5 2000 attack monster and link material. So yeah, the hand effect is alright. Well, it basically most of the time doubles the attack of the Trickstar you're targeting. So it is okay, but you run 3 most of the time, because you tend to have this thing on the field and use this link material in order to, you know, make plays. Alright, and now the final monster might not seem like an archetypal monster at first, but it is, lore-wise, and well, the background artwork really kinda pulls it in. It's Dark Angel, and yeah, it even doesn't have the Trickstar in its name. It's another level 5 with 0 attack and defense, and when your fairy monster is targeted for an attack, you can tribute it and send this card from your hand to the graveyard, then target one face-up monster your opponent control, change the attack target to your targeted monster, and if you do, it gains attack equal to the original attack of the tributed monster until the end of this turn. This sounds vaguely useful in the right situation because it's a bit on the specific side, and not all Trickstar monsters actually benefit from being tributed outside of using them as link materials. So yeah, the usage of this is very dampened, and if you run this, it's not probably at more than one. So yeah, if you run it at all. Alright, now going on to the extra deck monster. First up we have Trickstar Bloom. It's a link 1, points down, has 100 attack, and requires 1 level 2 or lower Trickstar monster. And if this card is link summoned, you can make your opponent draw 1 card. If a face-up Trickstar monster this card points to is destroyed by battle or card effect, you can inflict 200 damage to your opponent for each card in their hand. You can only use this effect of Trickstar Bloom once per turn. Not the most definite 3-off staple due to a bit specific special summoning condition, but you most likely use this effect, well, you most likely use it in order to basically go into their higher monsters and basically have an easier way of triggering Nightshade's effect of reviving itself, but making the opponent plus can be a bit of too much of a cost this archetype can handle, since yeah, they do have some cards which actually give your opponent free shit, but we'll get to those. Really, this isn't the best among them, and what this is supposed to entail is trigger the effects of Licorice, for example, which don't usually stay on the field for too long, and yeah. You run 1 or 2 of these just because it's a link 1, and it can be used for extra linking, which this archetype is known for. So yeah, you basically don't run it for its effect, you usually run it for its link arrows most of the time. Although if you do that, link Kurobane is probably a better choice, but if you can't afford to make them sometimes due to the archetype only having 1 level 1, then this is a good option as well. So yeah. Next up we have the archetype's poster boy and the ace monster of Aoi's Aizen before she transported to Marince's decks. So yeah, that's Trickstar Holy Angel, and look at that BDSM queen dangle her whip around. Anyway, yeah, this is link 2, points bottom left and bottom right, 2000 attack, requires 2 Trickstar monsters, and each time a Trickstar monster is normal or special summoned to a zone, discard points to inflict 200 damage to your opponent. Trickstar monsters you discard points to cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. If your opponent takes damage by a Trickstar monster's effect, this card gains an attack equal to the damage they took until the end of this turn. So yeah, this is one way to possibly play the deck, since you can turbo this thing out as fast as possible and then proceed to summon a bunch of link monsters under its arrows. And while you're link spamming those monsters, this thing burns for 200 damage each. Maybe even more if you special summon some other main deck monsters, and in turn it gets more and more attack points, and then you proceed to go with this thing and some of the link monsters you summoned earlier for the OTKs. So yeah, this is a 2 or 3 of staple because it's a very splashable archetypal first level boss monster, and yeah, for all intents and purposes it's actually pretty good, and yeah, we'll see some nice monsters as well later on. Next up we have Trickstar Black Catbat. This one has 2000 attack, link 2, points left and right, 2 Trickstar monsters it requires, and has probably one of my favorite visual designs and monsters in general. And each time a monster discard points to destroyed by battle or card effect and sent to the graveyard, inflict 200 damage to your opponent. Each time your opponent takes bad damage by a Trickstar monster's effect, face-up monsters they control lose 200 attack for each monster discard points until the end of this turn. So yeah, you might remember this little gal, as I mentioned her during the Topologic video review, because she, along with Nightmare Cerberus and Topologic Bomber Dragon, are the reason why Samsara Lotus is banned. I won't be repeating too much here because I already summed up what the loop does in the topologic video, but basically this 200 burn damage is what caused the loop to be so lethal, and basically the loop is infinite, so yeah, you're basically gonna know what I'm going for here. And yeah, points left and right, which is a nice middle link for extra linking, so yeah, it's usually ran at 2 or 3 as well, so yeah. Next up we have the other alluring 2, which is a bit of a weirder one in terms of, well, everything. That being Trickstar Crimson Heart. Yeah, continuing with the BDSM references here. Look at those handcuffs dangling. Yeah, this is another link 2, same summoning conditions as a Holy Angel and Catbat. Points bottom left and right. And each time a Trickstar monster is normal or special summoned to a zone, discard points to gain 200 life points. You can discard one Trickstar card, both players draw one card, but if your life points was at least 2000 higher than your opponent's when this effect was activated, you draw 2 cards instead. You can only use this effect of Trickstar Crimson Heart once per turn. So yeah, this is what I was referring to when I said this was weird. First of all, it does not have the staple burn damage effect of the Trickstars. Instead, it reverses on giving you life points. And yeah, you can trigger the Mandrake's effects with this card's discard effect for a 1 day of peace effect without the damage protection side effect. And if you happen to have 2000 more life points than your opponent, you get to draw 2 cards and your opponent only gets 1 card. I guess you can make the argument that you can special summon this when you're like very late into the duel and your opponent is almost like has taken a significant amount of damage in order to get a nice +2, but that's a very specific type of activation condition and everything, so if you run this, it's not probably at more than 1, so yeah, it's even questionable if you in general splashability, since this thing has very weird link arrows and it's not very useful in terms of extra linking, which this archetype again is very known for. A bit more useful can be a Trickstar Dividris. So yeah, this is a link 2 points bottom left and down, and 1800 attack, requires 2 level 3 or lower Trickstar monsters, and if you can only control one of these, and if this card is special summoned, you can inflict 200 damage to your opponent. If your opponent normal or special summons a monster, inflict 200 damage to your opponent. Like I said, a bit more useful because it's more on the line of what the archetype does, but it's not the best because most of the other cards do the exact same thing but miles better, and they have more generic summoning conditions. So yeah, links are the arrows are okay, but nothing too special. So yeah, again, you don't you run 1 or 2 of these, 2 at max. 3 is a bit too much since you have much better extra deck options here. So yeah. If they gave it one more very decent effect, then I would actually might consider calling this a better card. But yeah, it's a bit sad because I really adore the visual design on this card. So yeah. Next up we have the Trickstar Foxglove, which this is another link 3 which requires 2+ fairy monsters, so it's a bit more generic. Has 2200 attack, and yeah, their first link 3 points up, left, and right. And if this card is special summoned, you can inflict 200 damage to your opponent for each card they control. If this link summoned card is destroyed by battle or effect, you can special summon 1 link 2 or lower Trickstar monster from your extra deck, then inflict 200 damage to your opponent for each card they control. You can only use each effect of Trickstar Foxglove Witch once per turn. It actually sounds a bit disappointing at first, but the way how this thing deals burn damage, you can actually rack up some serious burn damage with this card if you combine it with stuff like the Dark Room of Nightmare, which is, well, you can actually provide make some decent burn damage. So, like, you can get decently over 2000 points of damage due to the opponent controlling a very nice number of cards. So yeah. The arrows are also pretty fine due to the fact that they can be used in both directions for extra links. So yeah, and due to them being the multi-directional corner link material, you can actually benefit by summoning the Trickstar Crimson Heart on the left side of it. So yeah, but then again, its bottom left arrow is what dampens it. So yeah, it's not that great at all. But it works if you want to go for that option anyway. So yeah. Next up, we have their final link tree, that being Trickstar Delphindium. So yeah, it's a bit of a weird name to read. Has the same attack. Requires 2+ Trickstar monsters. Points up, bottom left, and bottom right. And when this card declares an attack while pointing to a Trickstar monster, you can target one of your banished Trickstar cards up to the number of link monsters your opponent controls. Add them to your hand, and if you do, this card gains 1000 attack for each card added until the end of this turn. Okay, so this one is actually pretty damn interesting and actually good, because we only had 2 monsters for now, I think, which are banished upon leaving the field, which are Mandrake and Nightshade. And there is a trap card which they use, which is absolutely magnificently designed, which can also be fetched back, meaning we can turn this thing into a pretty huge beat stick, which basically is very good, and you can dish out some serious damage with this thing. So yeah, it's a very nice card indeed. What else can I say? So yeah, run 2 or 3 of these in your extra toolbox. And their final link monster is Trickstar Bela Madonna. This is a link 4, points up, down, right, and bottom left. Another weird set of link arrows, in my opinion. Requires 2+ Trickstar monsters at 2800 attack, and while this link summon card points to no monsters, it is unaffected by other cards activated effects. If this card points to no monsters, you can inflict 200 damage to your opponent for each Trickstar monster in your graveyard with a different name. You can only use this effect of Trickstar Bela Madonna once per turn. In terms of boss monsters, well, the immunity is always nice because it's unaffected by every activated effect, so meaning almost nothing can get over it. Again, she's susceptible to kaiju baiting as well, so that's about where the praise ends. Again, it's a bit of a hindrance since you most probably want to summon this next to Holy Angel's link, since she will not be pointing at any cards then. So yeah, or you plan to summon it when she's the only monster on the field, and yeah, it provides some decent burn damage while having no monsters linked to it. So yeah, it's you're most probably gonna have a lot of Trickstar monsters in your graveyard, so yeah, this burn is pretty relevant. So yeah, however, it isn't the hardest staple because it kind of contradicts to what the archetype does, and that is massive link spamming and extra linking. So yeah, you usually run 1 or 2 of these at max. And our final monster is actually a fusion monster, that being Trickstar Band Sweet Guitar. This is a level 7 with 2200 attack and 1200 defense, and requires 2 Trickstar monsters, of which one is at least a link monster. And effect damage inflicted to your opponent by your Trickstar link monster linked to this card is doubled. If your opponent takes damage by a Trickstar monster's effect, this card gains attack equal to the damage they took. Once per turn during the end phase, if this card attacked this turn, the attack gained from this effect returns to 0. Then you can add 1 Trickstar monster from your graveyard to your hand. This is okay, but it's a bit of a it can be a bit of a trouble finding any relevant targets to double the effect damage from. The most relevant one is Foxglove, which, in my opinion, since that one can actually provide some decent burn damage, so basically doubling it, you can basically get some nice 4,000 to 6,000 points of damage. So which is not that bad, in my opinion, given the fact that it can also turn this thing into an 8000 attack beat stick, which is always a plus in my book. Shameless, sadly, you lose the attack gain from this effect, which is understandable if you could consistently bump this thing with 6000 plus attack values, and yeah, but you get a Trickstar monster from the graveyard in return. I would have appreciated if you could actually search from the deck, but that would be a bit too much consistency. But yeah, this fusion monster is not that frequently ran in Trickstars, but it doesn't hurt at 1 or 2. And next up we have their first spell card, which is the Trickstar Fusion, which you use to summon the sweet band guitar. Fusion summon one Trickstar monster from your fusion from your extra deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion material. Then you can banish this card from your graveyard and target one Trickstar monster in your graveyard added to your hand. But you cannot normal or summon or set or special summon monsters with the same name for the rest of this turn. So basically, this is you would basically summon your sweet guitar and then banish this thing in order to fetch a potential material. You use this for from the graveyard, or you can basically fetch back Kurobane if you used her as material in order to have her attack, have her battle trap, no, not battle trap, hand trap effect ready on standby if you need be. So yeah. The best part about this card is that it does not have to. You do not have to wait a turn after you used it in order to use this effect, since most spell cards with this graveyard effect usually have that restriction. So yeah, it's great on that part. So yeah. Next up, we have their first field spell, that being Trickstarlight Stage. When this card is activated, you can add one Trickstar monster from your deck to your hand. Once per turn, you can target one set card in your opponent's spell and trap zone. While this card is on the field zone, that set card cannot be activated until the end of the phase, and your opponent must activate it during the end phase or else send it to the graveyard. Each time a Trickstar monster you control inflicts battle damage or effect damage to your opponent, inflict 200 damage to them. Okay, so this field spell is actually limited, and for a very good reason. On-the-spot search of any Trickstar monster upon being activated, which most likely is gonna be Belle, since if you didn't have it in your opening hand, you'll probably search it out with Andina, and then you can provide some additional burn damage for your Trickstars, and it can also shut down the opponent's back row, well, one piece at the time, but still, shutting down phase downs can be a very good, very nice strategy, but it is a bit on the flimsy side, since usually the opponent's back row tends to be face up and activated, since battle traps aren't ran as frequently as they were back in the day. So yeah, still definitely worth running and worth maxing out on if it ever comes off the limited list due to how great it is. Next up, we have Trickstarlight Arena. This is another field spell that if you link summon a Trickstar monster, you can target one Trickstar monster in your graveyard that was used as its material, special summon it in defense position, but negate its effects. You can only use this effect of Trickstarlight Arena once per turn. Once per turn, you can target one set card in your opponent's spell trap zone. While this card is on the field, that set card cannot be activated until the end phase, and your opponent must activate it during the end phase or else return it to the hand. Bouncing back row as opposed to destroying it is a bit of a worse trade-off in my opinion, but the first effect actually more than makes up for it. You can actually combo this thing by deactivating Light Stage, since you probably won't need it anymore after you've performed your key searches and everything. So yeah, so you basically exchange this with Light Arena, and then you basically get some nice recovery when you link summon, and you're allowed to basically recover a material you've lost for the link summon, which can be link monsters, and not to mention you can revive any link monster. So you can, if you for example used Bella Madonna for, I don't know, link 2 plays, you can instantly revive her and then go into oh no, wait, you can't revive link monsters, what am I saying? You need the special summon in defense position. So yeah, no link monsters, but still this is a nice card to consider having in your deck. So not as much as Light Arena, well, Light Stage, sorry. Light Stage is limited, and yeah, you most likely run this at 1 as well, because it is a hard once per turn, this recovery effect, so yeah. And their final field spell is Trickstarlight Stage. When this card is activated, you can add one Trickstar monster from your graveyard to your hand. You can only use each of the following effects of Trickstarlight Stage once per turn. You also cannot special summon monsters for the turn you activate this effect except Trickstar monsters, even if this card leaves the field. If you control a Trickstar Link monster, you can special summon one Trickstar token, which is a fairy level 1 attack 0, defense 0. And if your opponent controls a card in their spell and trap zone, you can special summon one Trickstar token. So yeah, this is usually a 2 or 3 off staple since Light Stage seems to be limited. And these are and Light Stage and Life Stage are usually the field spells we run most of the time, since this is a free token spawner, and upon activation you get a Trickstar from your graveyard back. So yeah, it's a very nice card, what else can I say? And you usually run 2 or 3 of these, and Light Stage at 1, and maybe a Light Arena at 1. I was actually... I'm shocked how my brain turned off for a second and thought you could actually revive Trickstar Link monsters you used for a Link play, so yeah. I guess I never learned, do I? Anyway, next up we have their quick play spell, Trickstar Bouquet. Target one Trickstar monster you control and one face-up monster on the field. Return that Trickstar monster to the hand, and if you do, the other monster gains attack equal to the original attack of the returned monster until the end of this turn. You can only activate one Trickstar Bouquet once per turn. This is somewhat of a spell card version of Dark Angel. Yeah, a bit more splashable and searchable, but almost on the same level as usefulness. But yeah, it's... Again, it's not a staple, but it can provide some nice stuff if you bounce back some Trickstars which you might not need at the moment, such as Kurobane can be bounced back with this thing in order to, like, you can, if your opponent's coming at you with a huge beatstick and you have Kurobane on the field, you use this, bounce back Kurobane, the monster gains 2000 attack, then you can also discard Kurobane in order to grant that monster some additional attacks. So yeah, specific, yes, but it can provide for some spicy disruptions. So yeah, 1 or 2 of these is fine. Next up we have Trickstar Magical Laurel. I wonder where Trickstar Magical Yanni is. This is an equip spell, which you can activate by targeting one Trickstar monster in your graveyard and special summon it and equip it with this card. When this card leaves the field, destroy that monster. Once per turn, if the equipped monster inflicts battle or effect damage to your opponent, you can special summon one Trickstar monster from your hand. You can only activate one Trickstar Magical Laurel per turn. This is an archetypal premature burial, and without the 800 cost of without the 800 life point cost in order to activate it. Yeah, this is basically a free revival, and then you tend to use the monster you revive for link plays or basically, well, extra deck plays in general. So yeah, the second effect is not very rarely gonna be pulled off. Yeah, you can summon link monsters with this thing, and basically special summon some more monsters, but yeah, that is if you have enough resources to go in for the kills. So yeah, but if you don't, you tend to ignore the second effect and just focus on some more monster swarming. So yeah, also you can also activate one of these per turn. So yeah, careful with the usage, I would say. And their final monster, the final spell card, sorry, is Trickstar Fez, a normal spell card, which allows you to special summon 2 Trickstar tokens, which are the same stats as the one that the Live Stage summons. If a Trickstar monster you control that was special summoned from the extra deck would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can banish this card from your graveyard instead, and you can only activate one effect per turn, and you cannot normal or special summon monsters the turn you activate this effect except Trickstar monsters. Yeah, this is basically 2 free tokens, and yeah, it works very well, and this is a 3-off staple because of it. It also has some nice protection for your extra deck monsters, and yeah, what's not to love? It isn't limited to waiting a turn in order to activate this effect, just like the fusion cards. So yeah, go wild here. It's a it's basically gives you two free tokens. It can be a very nice first turn play as well. So yeah, combined with a live stage, it can also provide some nice boards, and yeah, well, swarming is very definitely a plenty with this one. And their final card is their only trap card, that being Trickstar Reincarnation. Banish your opponent's entire hand, and if you do, they draw the same number of cards. You can banish this card from your graveyard to target one monster in your Trickstar monster in your graveyard to special summon it. Okay, so it is the only trap card, and you always run 3 of these at all times, at least in the TCG, because in the OCG this card happens to be banned. Why? Or actually limited. I'm not sure if it's banned or limited. But yeah, this is an absolutely ridiculous card. Well, you do get the opponent's the opponent only card destruction effect, and instead of sending to the graveyard, it straight up banishes the cards. However, you can actually combine this thing with Draw and Lockbird, which is actually one of the best lockdown cards and one of the best hand traps ever. Since when you discard Draw and Lockbird, you use this when your opponent discards the entire hand. Basically what it does not allow your opponent to draw cards outside the draw phase. So yeah, you can pretty much see what this does. You basically eliminate your opponent's starting hand of 6 cards, and then they have nothing to play. And yeah, this is one of the best first turn options you can actually make with Tricksters. And not to mention that this thing has a graveyard effect to allow you to basically special summon any Trickstar monster from your graveyard, which can be Link monsters. Run 3. I'm gonna stop myself here. And just like that, we've made it to the grades. Consistency, we have 0 complaints here, since they focused on massive spamming. Most of their main deck lineup has special summoning conditions. Lots of splashability and self-bouncing in terms of recycling some other cards which can hit the field more and more times, in order to provide some nice boards. So, not to mention that they can even potentially run Valhalla, which is searchable by Hecatrice, in order to facilitate more field presence. So yeah, this is about one of the hardest 3 out of 3 I have to give to an archetype in terms of consistency. In terms of power, they can reach some nice attack values. Some of them are a bit more specific than others. The most consistent one is Holy Angel, FTK and OTK, which relies on you spamming a lot of monsters on the board next to her links. So yeah, and it's not exactly 3 out of 3, but I'm actually going to be generous and give them a 3 out of 3 just because they have access to very consistent swarming fodder, which can result in some massive damage output. In terms of comeback ability, they actually have quite a lot of it. Basically, top decking into one of their field spells is enough for them to emerge victorious in terms in the game of who shall come back from a beatdown fastest. So yeah, it's not the best, but still it's very much deserving of a 2 out of 3. Protection exists in various ways. Some of them are more consistent than others, and some of them are not. Usually they rely on hand traps and their spell and trap lineup, which is not too amazing, but still enough for a 2 out of 3 in my opinion. And versatility gets a fat 3 out of 3. They're Trickstars. What else did you expect? They can also splash in some other various fairy monsters in order to cripple the opponent severely. You can also then try taking in Archlord Christia into the mix if you want to secure that win in late game by locking both players out of special summoning. You can always use you can always tribute Christia with some of their other monsters effects in order to gain some more advantage from that. Yeah, you enable the opponent's special summoning for that turn from the remainder of that turn and onward. But yeah, it's certainly there. The presence is definitely so felt there in the versatility department. So yeah, Trickstar is actually one of my favorite archetypes when it comes to basically playstyle and visual design, and if I can afford it one day, I can actually basically get a Trickstar deck, and I'd certainly want to make it as competitive as possible due to this archetype being one of the most meta-relevant archetypes ever to exist. And actually, I gotta give a quick credit to Holy Angel. This is actually the first female protagonist monster, female protagonist ace monster that actually got an alternate artwork, which is very nice indeed. And yeah, and when it actually comes to the said female protagonist, Aoi Zaizen slash Blue Angel slash Blue Girl slash Blue Maiden, oh god, that's a lot of aliases, is actually my second favorite Yu-Gi-Oh! MC girl of all time, because my third favorite is Yuzu. Well, because this character certainly had a lot of promise in her design and everything. It's a bit of a shame that after season 1 her basically development kind of started to stagnate a bit until it was completely ignored, but still, I think she should have actually stayed with Trickstars. It really fit her character and personality that we were promised to get more of, and yeah, it's a very nice thing that that this archetype exists. It really shows that maybe Konami is actually working their way up in terms of archetype design and card design, since they designed the freaking BDSM themed archetypes. So yeah, would I like to see more of them? Freaking lootly, because yeah, you can never have too many of these in your life as well. So yeah, more Trickstars, more Fortune Ladies, more Dragon Maids even. So yeah, let's keep spamming those beautiful Yu-Gi-Oh girls in our archetypes. We need them more. Anyway, yeah, I was afraid I was not gonna be able to make this video in time, but I actually did make it on time, even though it is now pushing 45 minutes. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more Viz walkthroughs and updates. Comment, like, and subscribe. And as usual, I'll upload the next vid whenever I can. And next time, we'll be taking a look at the Scrap archetype. Yeah, some of you might be a bit confused, but I know, I'll explain everything. See you all, have a good day, and peace.